Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by freshman from the Clarkson women's hockey team, Baylee Kirwan. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Baylee, and how's everything going?
It's going pretty good. How's everything going with you?
I'm doing well. It's the first day of the tournament, so that's always fun, just watching some good hockey. I don't know if you've been watching any of it, but it's been fun to watch for myself.
Yeah, I was actually just watching the Minnesota Duluth and Michigan Tech game right before I came on here, so it was an exciting game.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, it's disappointing for that Tech player that got kicked out of the game in the first period. I personally didn't agree with the call, so I feel like that really changed the game a lot towards Duluth's favor.
Yeah, I came actually after that, but the guys were talking about it, and then they're like mentioned that. So
Yeah, definitely tough for him, but it is what it is, I guess. So, but besides the tournament, how's everything going for yourself, both on and off the ice, and how's your freshman year been going for yourself?
pretty good. We just had spring break, so I got back on Sunday, and we started spring training today, or yesterday. So I'm a little sore, but that's going to happen. And I'm excited to get back into the swing of things after having a week off. And freshman year has been great so far.
That's awesome. And how was spring break? Did you do anything fun?
We actually went to Aruba.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, me and 11 teammates booked it. So after we lost, we went to Aruba, and it was really exciting, actually.
That's awesome. I hope you had a good time over there and enjoyed the warm weather. And obviously, what are your off-season plans? Like, what do you hope? What does your team, I guess, hope to work on heading in for next season for those team workouts like you were talking about?
It's a lot like individually based as well as teams. So like there's certain people that it's like more strength or like some are doing power, but overall it's like the same workouts, just different like weights and how he sets things up. Our trainer is like unbelievable, so he's very good with that stuff. And each day we work out 5 days a week, but every day is going to be something different. And I know like Thursday, if the week goes well, we have to like play some competitive games, obviously, like hockey. Like they say to like be multi-sport athletes, so like we're gonna play some other games just to get our bodies moving in different ways. And our ice actually comes out this weekend, so we are done skating. So it's kind of like straight workouts from here on out, but I think it's good team bonding for us.
Do you ever hit the ice during the summer, or are you just more just like working out, and then once the ice gets back, that's when you start skating again?
At home, I usually skate the month of July and a little bit in August. I usually take the spring off. Like I come from a farm, so like that's a busy time, and it's hard for me to skate and like give my body a rest. And then I hit the ice hard in July and August. But this summer, I think I'm planning on coming back to Clarkson, so I'll be here for like 5 weeks in the summer to skate and work out, and then I'll head home for a couple weeks before I come back.
That sounds good. Well, hopefully, I hope the off season goes well for yourself. Now, I want to transition and talk about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of work all the way up to where you are today with Clarkson. So you're from Gull Lake, Saskatchewan. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Well, it's a very small town. The population like 1,000, so everyone knows everyone. And I would say I just started playing hockey. I come from a hockey family. My grandpa played for the Swift Current Broncos, and then my uncle played for them as well. And my dad played at Fairbanks, Alaska. And then both my older sisters play hockey, and like my brother. So it just growing up, like everyone plays. So I started at a really young age, and we all still play to this day.
That's awesome. Who was your favorite player growing up?
I gotta go with Jordan Everly. I'm an Oilers fan, born and raised, so he was definitely my favorite when I was little.
Yeah, and obviously he's on the Kraken now. Have you had the chance to see him play with that team, or are you more just focusing on the current team with the Oilers now?
I haven't really watched any of Seattle's games. I know some of the guys have turned them on here, but we don't have a TV in the dorms, so it's harder. But I'm more of an Oilers fan, obviously. Connor
Mhm.
McDavid, he's pretty fun to watch, so I stick to that, watch following them.
Now, obviously, you talk about growing up in a hockey family. Just doing research on yourself, your older sister also plays Division I college hockey for Colgate. So, talk about what it was like, I guess, growing up with older siblings that also played, but also having a sibling that plays at the same level as you do in college, because that's pretty cool. Not many people get to say they have that.
It's definitely competitive. My whole family is competitive. That's just how we are and growing up. Uh, it made it easier to come down here, that's for sure, because like knowing she's down here and like kind of talking to her throughout her experience, and she loves it. And then we obviously got to play each other this year, and we definitely didn't take it easy on each other. Like was definitely interesting. Me and my sister aren't like super close, but it was definitely like easier to come down here and her to talk about her experience made like the whole recruiting process and everything easier, because even with my parents, like they've been through it with one kid, so they kind of got the handle of things and how everything worked. So I would just say it just made things simpler, and obviously it's more fun when you know people when you're playing against them, like even other girls, even just from Saskatchewan, you're like, oh, I know someone on the other team. It's just more competitive.
That's awesome. And did you get to take like a photo after the game? I feel like most siblings do that now.
Yeah. When our game we played in Colgate, we never got a photo because she was too mad that they lost. So she wouldn't. But then my whole family got to come down for when they played here. So we got a family photo and everything after the game, which was good.
It's awesome. Well, definitely your parents are definitely going to frame that one up in the living room at some point. So now,
Mm-hmm.
before Clarkson, you played for the Swift Current Wildcats. Talk about that organization and how'd you get the opportunity to play there?
Well, both my older sisters played there, so there was a Kirwan sister on the team for 9 years in a row, and I just I can say nothing but the best for that program. Obviously, it was the same coach throughout, and Terry Pavely was our coach. He was unbelievable. He definitely sets you up. He reminds me of a lot of Matt actually, and Swift's only 30 minutes from my hometown, so that's like our home center. Like once you hit about what is it, Bantam or U15 now, most people leave, sometimes younger than that. And so I left in grade 8, and I was there from all the way up till the end. And I loved every minute of it. My dad ended up coaching. So I think he's been coaching for like 8 years. He's still coaching that team. And we all three of us girls have nothing but the best to say. We all found a place to play, and he's very good with getting people to play college hockey afterwards. So yeah, I guess that was like I didn't have to leave any farther from home than I did because it was a good place to play. So I got to stay nice and close.
That's awesome. And just talk a little bit more about your experience with that organization and how did it help prepare you for college hockey with Clarkson?
I would say the biggest part is the coach, Terry. He's very like, I would say like old school in a way, but just like he coaches a lot like Matt, and like obviously it's expected. He expects a lot from you guys, and like there's like even things like off the ice, like he's like very much like you're representing the Wildcats. His quote was, "Don't embarrass the Wildcats. Like no matter where you are, the name follows you." And like I think Matt's the same way here. Like you're representing Clarkson. Like you always have like you're in a spotlight no matter like what you do. If one person on the team does something like say wrong or something, it's Clarkson women's hockey or Swift Current Wildcats women's hockey. Like you're framed as the team instead of just one person. So like he's like there's obviously advantages and disadvantages to that, but um you just like have to know like you're bigger than just yourself, and I think that's something to be proud of. Like you're have the opportunity that like most people don't.
Now, what's like the best memory you have with Swift Current? Is it winning a championship with that organization? Is it an off the ice memory or on the ice memory? Like what sticks out to you the most when you think about your time there?
Well, my grade 11 season got cut short, and my grade 12 season didn't really happen. So I would say we always have an end of the year banquet, and there was always like speeches, and we got these books that are like full of photos like every year, and we all sign them at the end, and like it's like a whole ordeal. And so when I go home, like I always get to look back through these like picture books. So I there's a whole stack of them, and they'll be with me forever, and they'll remind me of. And I would say that's like one of the coolest things that our team does that like is unique.
And who are some of the players you got to play with during your junior hockey days with Swift Current? I'm just curious. Do they get to? Is it was there has there been other D1 college hockey commits that have gone there?
Well, I played with my sister in grade 9. She was in grade 12. And then I played with Taylor Lind, who's at St. Cloud. And then a lot of girls went U Sport. A lot of them stayed in Canada. But then with Team Sask, I played with like Ashley Messier at Cornell, Annie King at Dartmouth in the ECAC. Nina Brick is at Colgate. And we've played each other. We're like the same age. We're both 03s. So we've played with each other and against each other all the way up. Sydney Peterson I've played with. She's at Mercyhurst. There's quite a few. I'm definitely missing some, but we all like lots of girls. Everyone will say something. They'll make a joke and they'll be like, "This person's from Saskatchewan. Do you know them?" And it's like, "Yes, I know them." You know everyone, so it's cool. Like when you like the hockey world is small, so obviously like we all played together at one point.
Yeah. Now talk about your recruitment process with Clarkson. How did that go for yourself, and what made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at?
Well, I was actually committed to Robert Morris. So they folded in May, end of May, I believe. And I was thinking it was maybe a couple of days after. I was kind of talking to some schools, and my coach back around Morris was like, "Hey, like Clarkson's going to reach out. Like, I just want you to know," because obviously Clarkson's a pretty well known school, especially for the women. And so I was like, okay. And at that point, I was kind of didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to end up. And we had one like Zoom call, and I was like, they were one of like they were the only school that offered me to come in this year. Everyone else was next year, like wait a year, take a postgrad year. And at Swift Current, you can't play as an overage. Like I know other leagues you can, but you can't in Sask. So I was like, I guess I got to do it. And I was supposed to redshirt coming in this year, but I ended up playing, and so it worked out for the best. But I think part of it was like good coaching staff. Obviously, Clarkson is well known. Like it's kind of hard to turn down Clarkson at this point. There's another girl who's older that played for Clarkson, an alumni. So I reached out to her, and she had nothing but good things to say about it. So I was kind of just like, I got to trust my gut here and figure out what I'm going to do, because I leave to school in like 2 months. So it was definitely probably one of the best decisions I made. I ended up in a good place, and I couldn't be more grateful for that.
Yeah, and what made you not like redshirt? I'm curious. Like, how did that process work?
Um, I'm not too sure. They literally, it was 4 days before our game, and they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna play." I said, "Okay." I think part of it was just like the unknown. Like they didn't recruit me, and then they didn't know what they would have coming in. So it ended up working out. But yeah, and we ended up having a girl take a red shirt this year,
Oh,
so it worked out.
that's good to hear. Well, glad it all worked out for yourself and for your team. Now, talking about your college hockey for your first year with Clarkson, what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make? Was it the speed of the game, or is it like the decision making that you have to make with the puck since it's coming at you a lot quicker than it did in juniors?
Um, I would think it's the decision making. I think like I've always been like a decent skater. Obviously, like I'm definitely not the fastest, and it definitely pushes me. It's fun playing with faster people because they push you to be faster. But the whole decision making was definitely an adjustment. Uh, but I would say like a lot of it is to do off the ice too, because a lot of it is like dealing with the training and like getting settled in like into like a new environment in school, and like having to balance everything is a huge adjustment, and you're just at the rink for a lot of the day. But first semester we made it by, but definitely second semester went a lot better.
Well, that's good to hear, and obviously talk about what it's like playing in the ECAC because it's arguably the best conference in women's college hockey with the amount of teams that made the tournament this year. And I'll just talk about the competition you face every night with those teams that made the tournament, but also with the teams that didn't make the tournament this year as well.
Yeah, well, obviously 1 through 8, like anyone could beat anyone at any night. So we saw that when Princeton like upset Harvard, and Harvard was on a pretty good run then. we had good games against Princeton. We ended up beating them both times, but every team struggled with some team. Like I know we were 1-1 against Colgate. We were 0-2 against Cornell. Like it came down to who won it more that night because we even saw Brown beat Quinnipiac. So it's like the ECAC, it's a battle every night, no matter who you're playing.
And obviously, one memorable moment from the regular season was in ECAC play when your team swept Colgate and Quinnipiac on the road. So talk about those two wins and beating those ranked opponents, and especially the game against Quinnipiac since you were in that game. Just talk about what it meant to your team and just how big those two wins were.
I think like our game against Quinnipiac was right after Christmas break. It was our first weekend back, and up until then, we kind of like hadn't played them, and so it was like, oh, it's gonna be a test. Like after Christmas, we know QPAC's supposed to be good. Like we see how they're ranked. I'm pretty sure they were pretty high at that point, like 4 maybe. They were pretty high, and so we're like kind of nervous, like. And then when we end up playing them and winning, I think was big confidence. Like, hey, we're right there. We're right there with that team, and they're up there with those teams. So like we can do it. And I would just say it gave like me more confidence because it was my first time, and it was like, holy, like national rankings, like these guys are like good, like they're ranked up high. So I would just say it was confidence was a big thing and show that we could do it. And then Colgate, obviously that was my first game ever playing against my sister, and I had watched Colgate and Clarkson play each other like how many times they played last year, like 12, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I knew Colgate's good. Obviously they won the ECAC last year, and I know my sister on the team, and I know majority of the team, and I've watched them lots. And so I was kind of scared because I was like, oh, I know a lot about this team. Like they're gonna come out and all this, and I was personally like super nervous. But after like beating them again, it was like, wow, like we're right there. Like we're just as good. We can do it. Anyone can win. So I think confidence is the biggest thing that I take away from those games.
And obviously, your team was ranked this year as well. So how was that feeling like to be ranked this year? And how did your team handle the pressure of being a ranked team when opponents are kind of having a target on your team's back?
Um, as a freshman, like I've never like not been on a ranked team now, so I've only ever been on this team, but it was definitely stressful at times. Like obviously you're expected to win. You're expected to be the best. And so it's a lot to handle, but I would say like with Clarkson being ranked pretty consistently throughout these years, it helps because like the coaching staff is very good at like they know what to expect, and they like are good at like knowing how to like deal with it, and like even like it doesn't show like on us, like they're very good dealing with us about that. And I would say the pressure in the locker room, like everyone's pretty like easygoing. Like they're like, we can't think about it. Like it's one game at a time, especially in the ECAC. Like we can't let anything get to our heads because anyone can win at that point.
And then another big victory for your team this year was when you beat Harvard at home. Talk about that home win and what it meant to your team, just because Harvard was kind of an up and coming team at that point of the season.
Yeah, that was I think that was our first game of the season against a ranked team. So I remember being like super nervous again because it was like first college game, okay, we're super nervous. Okay, first ECAC game, okay, we're super nervous. When I was first ranked team, we're super nervous. But it was very exciting game. Like I remember like even watching from the bench or being on the ice, like it was fast, and like people in the stands were like, that was maybe one of the best games like we saw you guys play. Like Harvard was good, and I think they made us realize like a new level that we could play at, because it just made us that much better. Playing good teams makes you better. So it was definitely exciting and showed what like we have potential to be that good. So
And how would you evaluate your team's performance during the regular season this past season? Because it felt like your team had a really good regular season, but unfortunately, towards the end, near playoffs, it seemed like there was a lot of losses that were coming towards your team's way and a couple of tough bounces that were going against your team.
yeah, we definitely couldn't get any bounces, but we like I would say we were pretty happy throughout the whole season. Like we were happy with how we played. We like found we like outcompeted teams, and like If you look at shots, like we would outshoot teams, we would out like attempts, and so I think the biggest thing is like now just like trying to find that next level to just bear down on some opportunities to like finish and like obviously win, because you can't win if you don't score goals, or at some points if you don't score more than one goal, like you won't win. So I think that's a big thing that we got to work on for next year, and like our coaches are aware of that. And obviously like they're disappointed with how the season like kind of finished, but they're like we're really happy with like how we played and stuff. And they said we didn't let it affect us, other than the fact that we couldn't win, but
Hmm.
hopefully next year.
Yeah, and obviously in the ECAC playoffs, you lost to Quinnipiac in a 3-game series. Talk about that series and what you took away from it, especially since it was your first playoff experience that you had with Clarkson.
uh yeah, obviously it was my first playoff game in like 3 years since grade 10, so it reminds you that like playoff hockey is like a new like it's playoff hockey is obviously a step up, and it's very competitive. And um I would say like again with QPAC we played good, and our coaches go the score doesn't reflect how the game actually went, but um we just had to take it, and I guess go had we were like didn't know if we had a chance at making the NCAA tournament at that point, so we were like, well, we got to keep working hard, and if we get our chance, and maybe we'll be able to do something, and we'll have to forget about this and move on, because at the end of the day you want to win a national championship. But obviously we lost, but again like we were happy with how we played, and we just got to figure it out.
And talk a little bit about like what your team's reaction was when you made the tournament and you found out you were going up to Boston to play Wisconsin. What was like emotions that are going through your head when you found out that Clarkson was going to the tournament, that you were going to play in your first NCAA tournament experience?
It was definitely really exciting. We didn't really know because we were kind of on the bubble, and we didn't know. At one point, there was a committee, so that kind of something changed this year, and obviously the tournament expanded this year, so it was a new layout. And I know there's a video that's on social media that kind of got sent out of our team, and like I would say everyone was generally like super excited. Like there was only a handful of girls in that room that had been to the NCAA tournament, and our coaches were pumped for us because they were like, we don't think that the QPAC series reflected, and so they're just happy that we got another chance. And it was very like nerve-wracking, but it was super exciting, like to get to go to Boston. Um, Other than the long bus ride, it was fun, and I don't know, it was fun to play Wisconsin also.
Yeah, what was that game like against Wisconsin? Obviously, it didn't go your team's way, but what did you take away from your first tournament experience and playing in that neutral site at Matthews Arena? That must have been fun for yourself to play an arena that you haven't played in before and play in a city that you normally don't play in, because Harvard's technically in Cambridge, not in Boston. So that's kind of a fun fact that people might not know about.
Yeah, I personally like the old rinks. I know they said it's like an old rink. Princeton is like one of my favorite rinks. I was like, this is cool. And so when we got to Northeastern, like their rink was like really neat, and it was exciting to play there. And Wisconsin, like to be able to play them was like really exciting, because like growing up obviously, or like these last couple of years, all you hear is like Wisconsin, like they got a big name, they're obviously last year's national champions. So it was like we can do this, like let's do this, because there's a lot of hype around them. So it was definitely exciting but nerve-wracking at the same time. And I would say like again, if you watch the game, it was 3-1, but they had an empty net. So it was a 2-1 game, and I would say it was like a very good game, and it was definitely really exciting. And we came on the wrong end of it, but we were happy with how we played, and definitely just have to take it and move on to next year.
And what was the biggest thing you learned this year in your first year in college hockey wise?
Hmm. Biggest thing I learned. Um, Anyone can win on any night. There's no, if you take a night off, you're not going to win. And I just thought that was cool, because like no matter what, you always hear the WCHA, like they're a big league, but at the same time, I feel like we were right there. Everyone was right there, and it was cool. Like it was nice to have that competition day in and day out.
And what was like the biggest improvement you made to your game this year? Playing in college hockey, obviously you're improving every day. So what was like the biggest improvement you noticed with your game this year?
I would say like just more accepting my role and like finding a way to be like beneficial for our team because growing up I was always like a goal scorer, obviously, like if you look at my old team, and then I come in and it's harder to like be that. So I would find my role was different this year, and um I was wanted like to play defense, and I like went with it, and I had fun. I enjoyed it, and like I thrived off it, and it worked for me, and so I can't wait to see where like that goes in the upcoming years.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the ice. So my first question to you is, what music are you into, and what do you like listen to before a game?
I'm definitely country music all the way, nothing else. And before the game, I do in fact listen to country music, and if no one else does, but that's how I got to do it.
Nice. Who's like your go-to artist like that fires you up? Like Thomas Rhett, someone like that, Darius Rucker?
Um, being honest, it's just on shuffle. Every time I have my playlist and I just go through it, and that's how I have to do it because it's superstition that I don't touch any song.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Is that like the biggest superstition you have?
Um, yeah, I would say like as freshmen, like we all live in the same building, so it's we all get ready and we all walk out the door at the same time, and we all have our music in, and so it's the same music every time. And I walk to the rink with the same person every time, and that's just how we did it from day one.
That's awesome. Well, what is your biggest pet peeve?
I hate when people dump water on me. So like at practice, if someone sprays water on me, can't do it. I don't like that. And I also off the ice, I would say when people just touch my head or my hair in any way, I don't like that.
Yeah. Is there any particular teammate that does it to bother you or try to annoy you, or is it just always on accident?
Uh, no, I made it pretty clear at the start because I was like, I don't want to get mad at anyone. I just like this is my pet peeve. My roommate sometimes does it to bother me, but we're like good friends, so
Hmm.
there's nothing. She doesn't mean it in any way.
Now, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
Um, Definitely Haley Wynn.
Nice. Would you play
Yep,
Haley in the same movie, or would it be like would you like reverse roles for that movie?
maybe. I find like most days we're kind of on the same wavelength. Like we'll look at each other and we know what the other one's thinking, and we'll clue in to what's happening in around the room.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of teammates, who's the funniest teammate you have at Clarkson?
I gotta go, Stephanie Markowski.
Now, you obviously have the best style on the team. I've seen the pregame outfits, but besides yourself, who has the best style on the team?
I would say Morgan Helgeson and Kirsten McQuig. Yeah, they
Nice.
got pretty good style.
And then last teammate question is, if there was any teammate you would want to cook a meal for you, which teammate would you pick?
Oh, cook a meal. Honestly, our captain, Katrin Lonergan, she made us a meal at the start, and it was unbelievable. So I might have to go her.
Nice. Well, what is the most interesting thing you've seen or read this week?
I gotta say, listening to our trainer talk about our spring training and like that stuff just interests me. So listening to like all the different workouts and what it does to your body and all the different things is kind of cool.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of a boring one, but it's about the CBA and MLB baseball. I find business and sports are pretty interesting to myself, and
Hmm.
I thought it was the whole arbitration thing and the service time and like how like players get paid and how it all works. I found it pretty interesting. I know some people will find it boring, but I thought it was pretty cool how it all works.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Now, back to some hockey questions. Now, first one is, what should be done to help grow the women's game?
I just think like keep making the awareness. Obviously, social media has been doing a great job of it, and I think the women's game can only grow from here as it has been. And I think just like continuing to like get little kids, like you gotta start them young and then make them fall in love with the game.
Now, what advice would you give a younger player who's pursuing a college hockey career in the middle of the recruiting process? Like, what advice would you give them to help the recruiting process and help them get noticed and help them make the right decision, I guess?
I would just say like always work hard. You never know who's watching at any moment, any time, and if you're in the recruiting process, pick a school that you'll like because like hockey is everything, but like obviously like women's hockey isn't quite that big, and you got to make sure you get like the degree you want and something that you'll like. And sometimes if hockey's not going well, you need school to be going well so that you can have something going well for you at that point. Um, and definitely like pick a place that you will want to be.
Should body checking be allowed in women's hockey?
I think so. I think if you start it with like an age group and work all the way up and slowly introduce it, I think it could make a difference and help grow women's hockey.
And what's the biggest check that you've ever thrown in a game accidentally on purpose? Like anything that you can think of, or are you always just a clean player?
Um, I don't know if I'm the type that you would have out there to hit someone, but yeah, I don't know.
Oh, awesome.
I'm pretty clean.
That's good. That's good to hear you. We always need a disciplined players to stay out of the box, just because you don't want to be killing penalties all game. So that's always a good quality to have.
Hmm.
Well, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, friends before we end this interview? Feel free to say, I know we mentioned some people throughout the interview, but feel free to shout out them again or say people that we might have forgotten about.
Um, well, before the interview, Jenna Goodwin told me to shout her out, so I got to do that. She's one of my best friends here, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Baylee, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best for the off season. I know you're going to do great for the upcoming season as well. It should be fun, and hopefully I get the chance to see your team play soon in person.
Thanks for having me.
Now, one thing that I just want to ask